You know that moment when your entire world crumbles in front of 20 people? When your boss destroys your reputation with a single sentence that echoes through a boardroom like a death sentence? Well, that was my Tuesday morning at Harrison & Associates, the most prestigious marketing firm in downtown Chicago. My name is Victoria Chen, and I had just finished presenting what I thought was the campaign of my career. 6 months of 18-hour days, countless revisions, and sleepless nights had led to this moment. The client was Meridian Tech, a billion-dollar company looking to rebrand their entire image. This wasn't just any presentation. This was the kind of account that could make or break careers. The morning air was crisp as I walked into our glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor. Lake Michigan stretched endlessly beyond the windows, and the autumn sun cast long shadows across the polished mahogany table. I had rehearsed my presentation dozens of times, and every slide was perfect. My navy blazer was pressed, my notes were organized, and my confidence was, well, it was about to be shattered. 20 minutes into my presentation, I could see the Meridian executives nodding. The creative director was taking notes. Even the notoriously difficult CFO seemed engaged. I thought I had them. God, I really thought I had them. Then my boss, Richard Hawthorne, stood up. At 55, Richard was everything I thought I wanted to become. Sharp, successful, and commanding. His silver hair was always perfectly styled, and his $1,000 suits never had a wrinkle. But that morning, something in his cold blue eyes made my stomach drop. "Thank you, Victoria," he said, his voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd heard him use with interns. "I think what we're seeing here is exactly what makes Victoria such a unique member of our team." The room fell silent. I could hear my own heartbeat. "She's got passion, not skill," he continued, letting out a small laugh that made my blood freeze. Passion can be charming, but when we're dealing with clients of Meridian's caliber, we need proven expertise. The words hit me like a physical blow. 6 years at this company. 6 years of arriving first and leaving last. 6 years of building campaigns that won awards, brought in millions, and made Richard look like a genius. And this was how he saw me? As someone with passion but no skill? I watched as the Meridian executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The creative director stopped taking notes. The CFO's expression changed from interested to dismissive. In 30 seconds, Richard had undone everything I'd worked for. "Which is why," Richard continued, straightening his tie with a smug smile, "I'll be personally overseeing this account moving forward. Victoria, thank you for your enthusiastic contribution." The meeting ended with polite handshakes and promises to be in touch, but I could see it in their eyes. They saw me exactly as Richard had painted me, an overeager amateur playing in the big leagues. As the executives filed out, chatting quietly among themselves, I stood frozen at the front of the room. My hands were shaking, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. Richard was already at his phone, probably calling his assistant to set up his next meeting about my account. My account. The account I'd discovered, pitched, and developed from nothing. That's when I realized something that would change everything. Richard hadn't just humiliated me. He'd made a fatal mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how much passion I had, and just how far I was willing to go to prove my skill. As I walked back to my office, my heels clicking against the marble floor, I wasn't thinking about crying or quitting or finding another job. I was thinking about something much more satisfying. I was thinking about revenge. My office was a glass box overlooking the Chicago River, and that afternoon, it felt more like a prison cell than a workspace. I sat behind my desk, staring at the resignation letter I'd started writing 3 different times. Each time, I'd get halfway through and delete it all. Walking away felt like giving Richard exactly what he wanted. Confirmation that I was just another passionate amateur who couldn't handle the pressure. But staying felt impossible after what had happened in that boardroom. The November wind was picking up outside, sending papers flying across the plaza 40 floors below. Office workers hurried past, bundled in their coats, probably heading to lunch meetings or client presentations. Normal people living normal professional lives, unaware that my entire career was imploding. My phone buzzed. A text from my colleague Marcus Rodriguez. "Heard what happened. You okay?" Word travels fast in a firm like Harrison & Associates. By now, everyone knew that Victoria Chen had been publicly humiliated by Richard Hawthorne. They knew I'd been reduced to a passionate amateur in front of our biggest potential client. They knew my 6 years of success had been dismissed with a single laugh. I was about to respond when my computer chimed with an email notification. My heart sank when I saw the sender, Jennifer Walsh, Harrison & Associates Managing Partner. The subject line read, "Meeting request, tomorrow 9 a.m. Jennifer was Richard's boss, and she was requesting a meeting the day after my humiliation. This couldn't be good. But as I opened the email, something interesting caught my attention. The tone wasn't what I expected. It wasn't the formal, cold language of a disciplinary meeting. Instead, it was almost friendly. She mentioned wanting to discuss your future at the firm and explore some exciting opportunities. That's when it hit me. Jennifer Walsh had been in that boardroom. She'd seen everything. She'd watched Richard throw me under the bus, and she'd seen how the Meridian executives had reacted. More importantly, she knew something that Richard had apparently forgotten. I was the one who had brought Meridian to the firm in the first place. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing something I'd never done before. I started documenting everything. Every email, every client meeting, every campaign idea, every successful pitch. I pulled files from my computer, printed contracts, and organized 6 years of work into neat folders. What I discovered was stunning. Over the past 2 years, I had been the primary contact for 60% of our major accounts. I had generated over $12 million in revenue for the firm. I had won 4 industry awards that had Richard's name on them, but my work behind them. But the most interesting discovery was something I found buried in my email archives. A thread from 8 months ago between Richard and Jennifer about the Meridian account. In it, Richard clearly stated that I was the driving force behind the Meridian acquisition, and that my innovative approach and client relationships make her invaluable to this project. 8 months ago, I was invaluable. Today, I was just passionate. As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I made a decision. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to accept Richard's version of events, and I certainly wasn't going to let him take credit for my work anymore. I was going to that meeting with Jennifer Walsh, and I was going to tell her exactly what had happened. But more than that, I was going to show her something that would change everything. I opened my laptop and started typing, but this time it wasn't a resignation letter. It was a proposal. A detailed, comprehensive proposal for how Victoria Chen could take Harrison & Associates to the next level without Richard Hawthorne. By the time I left the office that night, the city lights were twinkling below, and I had a plan. Richard thought he'd destroyed me with his public humiliation. What he didn't realize was that he'd just given me the motivation to destroy him right back. The game was about to change, and this time, I was going to win. I arrived at the office 30 minutes early, my stomach churning with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Chicago looked beautiful from the 42nd floor, all gleaming skyscrapers and busy streets, completely unaware of the career-defining meeting about to take place. Jennifer Walsh's corner office was intimidating even on a good day. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with marketing textbooks, industry awards, and photos of Jennifer with various celebrities and politicians. Her desk was massive, made of dark wood that probably cost more than most people's cars. At 62, Jennifer was everything I aspired to be: successful, respected, and absolutely fearless. Her silver hair was always styled in a perfect bob, and her wardrobe consisted entirely of power suits that cost more than my monthly rent. She had built Harrison & Associates from a small agency into one of Chicago's most prestigious firms, and she commanded respect from everyone who met her. "Victoria," she said, gesturing to the leather chair across from her desk. "Thank you for coming. Coffee?" "Yes, please," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. My hands were shaking slightly, and I hoped she wouldn't notice. As she poured coffee from an expensive-looking French press, Jennifer's expression was unreadable. She could be about to fire me, promote me, or anything in between. The uncertainty was killing me. "So," she began, settling into her chair and fixing me with her sharp green eyes. "Yesterday was quite a day." My heart sank. Here it comes, I thought. The lecture about professionalism, team dynamics, and knowing my place. "I've been with this firm for 23 years, Jennifer continued, and I've seen a lot of talented people come and go. I've also seen a lot of politics, ego, and frankly, bullshit. I blinked. Jennifer Walsh didn't usually use profanity in professional settings. What happened in that boardroom yesterday was unacceptable, she said, her voice hardening. Richard's behavior was unprofessional, inappropriate, and frankly, stupid. Wait, this wasn't going where I thought it was going. I spent some time last night reviewing your work, Jennifer continued, opening a thick folder on her desk. Your client acquisition rate, your campaign success metrics, your revenue generation. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. She pulled out several documents and spread them across her desk. I recognized some of them. Campaign reports, client testimonials, award certificates. The Meridian account, she said, tapping one of the papers. That was your contact, wasn't it? Your relationship with their marketing director from your previous firm? Yes, I said, finding my voice. I've known Amanda Rodriguez for 4 years. She specifically requested to work with me when they decided to rebrand. Jennifer nodded. I thought so, which makes Richard's behavior even more inexcusable. She leaned forward, her expression intense. Victoria, I'm going to be direct with you. Richard Hawthorne has been with this firm for 12 years. He's competent, he's connected, and he's generated significant revenue. But he's also arrogant, territorial, and apparently threatened by talented women. My coffee grew cold as Jennifer continued. I received a call this morning from Amanda Rodriguez at Meridian. She was concerned about yesterday's presentation. Specifically, she was concerned about the change in point of contact for their account. My heart started racing. Amanda had called. She made it very clear that Meridian's decision to work with Harrison and Associates was based primarily on their confidence in you. She used the words innovative, trustworthy, and brilliant to describe your work. Jennifer paused, studying my face. She also said that if you're not the primary contact on their account, they'll be taking their business elsewhere. The words hit me like a lightning bolt. Amanda Rodriguez, the marketing director of a billion-dollar company, had gone to bat for me. She had essentially told Jennifer Walsh that I was non-negotiable. So, Jennifer said, closing the folder, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be promoted to Vice President of Client Strategy. You'll have your own team, your own budget, and your own accounts, including Meridian. I stared at her, speechless. Richard will be reassigned to focus on internal operations. He'll report to you on any accounts where you're the primary contact. But, I started to say. But nothing, Jennifer interrupted. This is business, Victoria. Richard made a strategic error yesterday. He embarrassed a valuable employee in front of a major client, and that client has now made it clear they won't work with anyone else. The choice is simple: promote you or lose a multi-million-dollar account. She stood up, extending her hand. Congratulations, Vice President Chen. Your new office is down the hall, and your assistant will be here Monday morning. As I shook her hand, still in shock, Jennifer smiled. Oh, and Victoria, the next time someone says you have passion but not skill, remember this conversation. Sometimes passion is exactly what creates the skills that matter most. I walked out of that office feeling like I was floating. In 24 hours, I had gone from being publicly humiliated to being promoted to vice president. Richard's attempt to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. But the best part? I hadn't even had to ask for it. My work had spoken for itself, and the clients I'd built relationships with had spoken for me. Richard had played his hand, and he'd lost everything. The next Monday morning, I arrived at my new office to find a dozen roses on my desk and a note from Amanda Rodriguez. Congratulations on your promotion. Looking forward to working with VP Chen. My new office was 3 times the size of my old one, with a view of both the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. The furniture was expensive, the technology was state-of-the-art, and there was even a small conference table for client meetings. But the best part was the nameplate on my door. Victoria Chen, Vice President of Client Strategy. I spent the morning in meetings with Jennifer, discussing my new role, my team, and the strategic direction for my accounts. The conversation was energizing, filled with discussions about expansion, innovation, and the future of the firm. For the first time in years, I felt like my ideas were not just being heard, but actively sought after. Around 11 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I looked up to see Richard Hawthorne standing in the doorway, looking nothing like the confident, commanding figure who had humiliated me just 4 days earlier. His usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, his tie was crooked, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Uncertainty. "Victoria," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. "Congratulations on your promotion." "Thank you," I replied, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Please sit." He settled into the chair, and I could see him taking in the office, the size, the view, the expensive furniture. Everything that had once been symbols of power he could only dream of reaching. "I wanted to apologize," he began, his words careful and measured, "for what happened in the boardroom. I was out of line." I studied his face, looking for sincerity. What I saw instead was calculation. This wasn't a genuine apology. This was damage control. Richard had realized that his attempt to undermine me had backfired, and now he was trying to salvage what was left of his position. "Richard," I said, keeping my voice professional, "I appreciate the apology, but I think we both know that what happened wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate attempt to undermine my credibility in front of a major client." His jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "I was trying to protect the firm's interests. Sometimes that requires making difficult decisions about who leads which accounts." "By dismissing 6 years of my work as passion, not skill?" I asked, my voice remaining calm despite the anger I felt rising. "That was poorly phrased," he admitted. "I didn't mean to minimize your contributions." I leaned back in my chair, studying him. "Richard, can I ask you something? In the past 2 years, how many major accounts have you personally acquired for this firm?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Well, that's not really how we measure, because I've acquired 7, I continued, "including Meridian, which, as you know, represents about 15% of our annual revenue." The office fell silent. Outside, Chicago was bustling with its usual energy, but inside, the tension was thick enough to cut. "I've also been thinking about our conversation from last Tuesday," I said, opening my desk drawer and pulling out a folder. "About passion versus skill." I placed the folder on the desk between us. "These are the industry awards I've won over the past 3 years. The ones with your name on them as the supervising partner." Richard's face grew pale as I opened the folder. "This is the client retention report, showing that my accounts have a 94% retention rate. And this," I said, pulling out the final document, "is my resignation letter." His eyes widened. "Victoria, you don't need to." "Let me finish," I said, holding up my hand. "This is the resignation letter I wrote after you humiliated me. I was going to submit it to Jennifer and walk away from everything I'd built here." I picked up the letter and, without breaking eye contact, tore it in half. "But then I realized something," I continued, dropping the pieces into the trash can beside my desk. "You were right about one thing. I do have passion. Passion for excellent work, passion for client relationships, and passion for building something meaningful." I stood up, walking around the desk to lean against it, positioning myself slightly above him. "But what you got wrong, Richard, is that passion and skill aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, passion is what drives skill. Passion is what made me stay late perfecting presentations while you were at networking events taking credit for my work. Passion is what made me build relationships with clients while you were focused on office politics." Richard's composure was cracking. "Victoria, I think we should focus on moving forward professionally." "We are moving forward," I interrupted. "You're going to be working under my supervision on any accounts where I'm the primary contact. That includes Meridian, Techstone Industries, and Premier Financial." I walked back to my chair and sat down, maintaining eye contact. "I want you to know that I don't plan to make this difficult for you. I believe in professional excellence, and that means working effectively with everyone on the team. But I also want you to understand something very clearly." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I earned this promotion through skill, not politics. Through results, not manipulation. And if you ever try to undermine me or any other member of my team again, I will make sure that everyone in this industry knows exactly who you really are." Richard sat in stunned silence for a moment, then slowly stood up. "I understand," he said quietly. "Good," I replied, my voice returning to its professional tone. "I look forward to working with you. My assistant will send you the details about our first team meeting." After he left, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the city spread below me. The November sun was shining brightly, and Lake Michigan sparkled in the distance. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The humiliation, the anger, the determination to prove myself. Richard had been wrong about me, but in a way, I was grateful for his mistake. His attempt to destroy me had revealed something I might never have discovered otherwise. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Heard about your promotion. Drinks tonight to celebrate?" I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. I've got a lot to celebrate." As I settled into my new role, I realized that Richard's words that day had been prophetic, just not in the way he'd intended. I did have passion, and that passion had created skills that no amount of politics or manipulation could match. The best part? I was just getting started.